On August 4th, 2022, social media outlets were flooded with video clips of a speeding Mercedes-Benz barreling through a busy Los Angeles intersection at 130 miles per hour and slamming into several other vehicles that resulted in a fiery explosion. The crash would ultimately cost 6 lives in the end. The images of the crash that flooded news outlets, along with the accounts of survivors and witnesses, all compiled into the outcry and demand of justice, as all eyes pointed to the person responsible for the tragedy. This is the story of the Windsor Hill crash. "23-year-old Asheray Ryan, already a mother to an 11-month-old boy, Alonzo, was excited to be expecting her second child. On Thursday afternoon on August 4th, 2022, Ryan, Alonzo, and her fiancé Reynold Lester were on their way to a 2 o'clock pregnancy checkup appointment, for which they left for around 1:30 p.m. Ryan's sister, Sienna Kerr, recalled her last conversation with her 8-month pregnant sister as she left the house. "She literally walked out the door, because we all live together," she said. "I'm going to my doctor's appointment to check up on the baby." Kerr recalled offering to watch baby Alonzo while Ryan and Lester went to the appointment. Ryan, however, rejected her sister's offer, saying, "No, I want to take my son for a ride." It was a few minutes after 1:30 p.m. that Veronica Esquivel was at one of the 4 gas stations at Slauson and La Brea Avenue when she heard a loud crash that alerted her. "I was about to pump gas and all of a sudden I heard all the noises from all of the collisions, and then the fire exploded and I saw things, metal and things flying in the air. So I just covered myself behind the pump," she later recanted. As if Esquivel's experience up to this point was not traumatic enough, she then became witness to one of the most gruesome scenes she would ever see. All of a sudden, a baby literally flew from the middle of the intersection to the middle of the gas station, landed right on the floor in front of me, Esquivel said. "One of the workers came and saw me with the baby and took the baby out of my hands. Somebody tried to resuscitate the baby, but the baby was gone. Everyone was going through a process of not really knowing what to do and helping as best as they can," said Jamarcus Robinson, who had popped into the United Oil for something to drink while going for a run. "We saw a baby. There was a car seat in the street and a baby not too far out. Not too far from the baby was a heavily pregnant woman lying over to the side who was deceased. As frantic as the witnesses to the horrific scene were, they soon came to the realization that there was nothing much they could do. A few moments earlier, a black Mercedes-Benz had run a red light and slammed into several vehicles that included the car which carried Lester, Ryan, and baby Alonzo as they headed to their doctor's appointment. Surveillance footage taken at a nearby gas station shows that the speeding Mercedes completely disintegrates the car it first comes into contact with, and the second car trailing just behind. All of the vehicles exploded in flames and skidded into a nearby gas station, leaving a trail of fire and many dead and injured, including baby Alonzo, who had been the baby that Veronica Esquivel had witnessed be ejected from the car. Also listed as among the deceased was the baby boy which Ryan was carrying at the time, posthumously named Armani Lester. The fiery collision was so violent, a Los Angeles County coroner spokeswoman said that it tore Armani from his mother's womb. According to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, his date of birth and date of death fell on the same day. Sadly, the tragic news of lives taken would not stop there. Clarence Hamlin was worried when his girlfriend Natisha Lewis didn't come home the day of August 4th. He kept calling her and her friends, but no one knew where she was, and all the calls to her phone went straight to voicemail. In the meantime, news began to circulate around the neighborhood about the crash. Speculation was that the Nissan that was involved in the crash belonged to 38-year-old Lynette Noble, whom Lewis was friends with. Noble and Lewis were both running errands together the afternoon of August 4th, and neither one of the women had been seen since. It was days after the families of friends of Noble and Lewis began to piece together that the two women were perhaps lost in the tragic crash. If true, this would have made Noble and Lewis the last two victims that had yet to be identified. A spokesperson with the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office said the remaining two victims' identities were pending positive identification. The California Highway Patrol initially said the cars burned in the fire were so badly damaged their makes and models were not immediately clear. However, personal items found at the scene that included Noble's ID would help confirm their identification. It was not until days after the crash that coroners were finally able to officially identify Lynette and Noble as victims with the help of their DNA samples provided by family. "Initially, I looked at it how the world looked at it," Nelson's brother would say. "This crash I saw in those burning cars, that was my sister burning. My sister had to be identified by DNA as she was severely burned and couldn't be visually identified." After the wide publicized tragedy poured in questions and speculations as attention quickly turned to the driver of the car that had caused the fatal crash. 37-year-old Nicole Linton, a traveling nurse working at Kaiser Permanente's West Los Angeles Medical Center, was recorded driving down La Brea Boulevard at speeds of up to 130 miles per hour, crashing into passing traffic at the busy intersection of La Brea and Slauson that caused the fiery wreck. Linton was treated for her injuries, which were considerably minor, and subsequently arrested. In the meantime, the viral video of Linton's Mercedes speeding into the traffic was played over and over across social media to horrified audiences who speculated reasons for Linton's reckless driving. Sources in the days after the crash speculated that Linton was in a frantic state after an argument with her boyfriend and/or was heavily intoxicated. Other speculations included that the crash was intentional and that Linton was trying to take her own life. The curiosity would only somewhat be calmed after Linton's arraignment as her lawyers began to form her defense. Linton was said to be in the throes of a frightening mental health crisis in the days, hours, and minutes before the crash. Court records filed by her attorneys alleged. 6 weeks after the accident, a website called Nicole Linton's Story was launched. The website was posted by Linton's sister Camille in a post titled, "The True Story of Nicole Linton." She writes that Linton's family had elected not to share anything about Linton prior to this point out of respect for the victims of the crash and their families. But now they have posted a 6-part series detailing Linton's alleged history of mental illness, what happened the day of the accident, and a post detailing the difference between manslaughter and murder. Camille's recollection of some of the details of that day of the accident goes as follows. "It was my other sister, Kim, who was on the video call with Nicole Linton the day of the accident. Kim and Nicole spoke pretty much every day, and she had started to notice that Nikki was behaving erratically and saying things that did not make sense. Kim called me 4 minutes before the accident saying she was scared Nicole was having another manic episode. Kim also mentioned to me that Nicole went home for lunch at one point, and it was there, while at home, she briefly walked across the screen, naked while changing. I just felt I had to clear that part of it due to the misinformation around why and how she was naked." Camille is referring to reports that broke in the media that Nicole had appeared on a FaceTime naked before the crash. After lunch, Nicole went back to work and was there for some period in a manic state. At some point, while still manic, she left work and the accident happened shortly after that. Camille Linton stated that the purpose of the website is to provide clarity on Nicole as a person and bring awareness to mental illness, which she states was a major factor in the crash. "When I see that video, I don't see Nicole driving. I see her mental illness driving," Camille wrote in Linton's defense. Investigators claim that Linton has had a history of car crashes, most of which were not in the state of California. One of the crashes allegedly took place as recently as 2020 and ended with multiple injuries. As of this video being posted, Linton has been charged with 6 counts of murder and 5 counts of vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. Her lawyers have brought forth a defense that Linton had a seizure behind the wheel. This is in spite of emergency room doctors who treated Linton in the immediate aftermath of the crash, not reporting any signs of seizure or impairment that would indicate a recent loss of consciousness, according to the prosecutor's motion. Lawyers for Linton plan to support their defense with a neurologist who specializes in seizures testify on Linton's behalf. If convicted of all charges, she faces a potential sentence of 90 years to life in prison.